The music has no right to be this good.
Those vibes.
If only we could just softly talk over the music.
Oh, you just have to cut it out, I guess. Yeah, right.
Welcome. It's Friday morning, and we're here. Hey, Chad.
GM.
Chatty be there?
Big Chad, where you at?
Sorry, I'm here. I'm here.
So, what's up, Chad? How was your Cosmos meetup from the other night?
Oh, it was good. It was a Cosmos meetup. It was like really sponsored by a new chain called Noble, which I think is trying to create a native like USDC on the Cosmos ecosystem, which is kind of cool. Instead of bridging it through, bridges, have it be like it's a native asset that the Noble chain is implementing. And they're actually using the interchain security for that project, which is, I think, one of the first ones or something like this, which is interesting how they're setting it up. So I was able to spend some time with Yelena and ask her a bunch of questions. And we're going to meet next week as well, just to chat and kind of go over some more of the details to learn more.
Cool. Is it like a live chain already, or is it like testnet?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I didn't ask that specific question. The impression that I got that it's not live quite yet, but it's going to be at some point. They've already worked with a deal with Circle, to my knowledge, to get them to actually mint and burn USDC on that chain, and then you can use IBC to beam it around to whatever DeFi protocol you want to
Oh, is that
use.
the USDC chain that's supposed to be coming out like later this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're talking about the same thing. Um, And it's cool because one of the things that's fascinating about this is that it's one of the first Cosmos chains to not have its own native asset, I think. And so there's no like native coin that exists for like Noble. There's no Noble coin to my knowledge. And validators have to get paid through transaction fees on the Noble chain because it's going to cost validators about $600 a month or so, estimated, to run this extra chain that the Cosmos hub is going to validate. And so they have to make sure they're earning an income from that to make it worthwhile, right? And so they have to make sure they may have to subsidize it in the beginning. I don't really know. Like, I obviously don't work on the project, so don't take my words as truth. But my assumption is they have to subsidize it in the beginning, and then eventually, if there's enough transactions happening to warrant the payouts to the validators, and just take off by itself, I suppose. But it's interesting. It's an interesting use case of interchain security.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I had heard about like official USDC coming to Cosmos. So I guess I'm still a little confused if this is that or if this is something adjacent to that. But that's really interesting. I hadn't heard of the name or any of this, so pretty cool.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, a
Yep. It's
USDC
pretty
only
neat.
chain is like a very interesting concept in of itself, especially in the Cosmos ecosystem. That's just like a different paradigm completely. So that sounds really interesting to me. So interested to hear more about that when there's more details, maybe.
We could probably do a cross space with them, if we wanted to, if we wanted to kind of learn more about it, just out of curiosity.
One more reason to head towards IBC aggregation. Need to see Osmo or something on THORChain eventually.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know if it makes sense to put Osmo and THORChain directly or not. I mean, there's arguments for it and there's arguments against it. But um, my assumption, the reason why I'm saying this, is because my assumption is that the Atom pool will likely always be deeper than the Osmo pool, and therefore it becomes a better conduit to move in and out of the IBC world, right? Because you'll pay less in fees because the Atom pool will be deeper, just because its market cap is significantly larger. And so hopefully what we can actually do is you use Atom token, you get from the hub chain, and then you use some of these like newer features in Cosmos to then send that kind of like seamlessly, and like you don't have to do these individual transactions yourself, but like seamlessly it just kind of broadcasts the Atom token by IBC over Osmo, then swaps it for some asset using DEX aggregation, and then you get your final asset, whatever that is. So I'm not sure if we ever will add osmosis or not, to be honest.
Okay, that's really interesting because yeah, the reason I've been excited for Osmo is because my understanding was that would be the only way to make it seamless, like single transactions, not have to do a separate transaction for the THORChain Atom part and then the Atom IBC part. But if some of these new ways can make that happen with Atom, then that's just even better. We don't have to complicate it.
Yeah, I think there's like a new functionality in the newest versions of like Cosmos, or what's maybe coming down the street in a sense, is the ability to like batch a bunch of transactions across multiple chains using IBC as kind of like the conduit of all that. And so I think it's possible to do so. And really all it's doing is just creating convenience functions, right? Which is useful, but not groundbreaking. And so you're just basically using these convenience functions to be able to do multiple transactions within the Cosmos ecosystem let's do this first and do an IPC transaction, then run this, smart contract that does this thing or whatever it might be. I think you can do that now in Cosmos. I hope I'm right. I'm not misunderstanding something. And so theoretically, we could utilize that system at some point in the future, and that might be more capital efficient for users to go that methodology rather than going directly to Osmo, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I'll push some of the THORSwap devs to maybe dive in and take a look there because I know THORSwap would love to aggregate it but yeah, the kind of the like the line in the sand has sort of been like the one transaction thing. So yeah, that would be I would be so stoked to see that.
Yeah, man, me too. It's something that we should investigate at some point as devs.
Yeah, I think it would finally wake up some of those Cosmos folks to what's going on over here.
And getting the aggregation out of the EVM ecosystem, like where it is right now, um, that's where it's going to be. Because people want to make those transactions, but there's no like easy aggregators to go cross chain over there. So aggregators supporting that would be absolutely amazing, especially because the Atom pool, like, it's going to need to go through one thing in order to have a deep enough liquidity pool to go through on THORChain, right? So Atom pool makes sense to me. But
Yeah, and then
let's,
that'll
yeah.
that'll boost the yields. That'll attract more liquidity to Atom, which hasn't been super deep so far. But if that's the case, then I'm sure that'll bring a lot more volume, which brings a lot more liquidity, brings yield for Atom savers. Then maybe Atom savers starts to look more enticing than regular Atom staking. So that could really get the flywheel going for that pool.
Yeah, let's take a look at savers real quick right here. Bitcoin pool is just about full right now on the savers front. So it looks like the synth utilization is almost completely gone over there. There's about 11 million in Bitcoin savers, and then one of the things I pointed out earlier this week, which is pretty interesting, Litecoin number three in the savers count. In terms of like the total depth, with about 450,000 in like US dollar value, like 5,200 Litecoin in the pool itself, with a crazy APY of like 8.5%. Uh, yeah, but Litecoin, big surprise on this one, but not surprising that Bitcoin pool is just about full at this point.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is like, if you look at all the savers combined by like dollar value, I think the Bitcoin savers is like 3/4 of like all of the savers combined. And I think Ethereum is like, you know, almost a fourth. Like those two are like 90
Yeah,
something
Bitcoin's like
percent
Yeah,
of all
70%,
savers.
and ETH is like 21%. So that's about 90% of the whole thing, and then everything else is like a slice of that 10. But Litecoin is I mean, it's punching above its weight class in terms of like where it is in this on this list. And 500K in the Litecoin pool is like it's definitely nothing to scoff at. Like that's a like this is by far the deepest Litecoin pool I think that exists, probably, if I had to just take a stab in the dark at this.
I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any other option in existence, right? Any other single-sided yield, at least.
Yeah, unwrapped,
yeah, absolutely.
probably. And yeah, that was just one thing I was looking into this week. Like what wallets are Litecoiners using, and just like I'm also wondering if it's sort of due to Paul from Edge Wallet. I remember a couple weeks ago he was pushing the Edge integration and saying specifically saying, "Hey, Litecoiners, like there's yield here." So I also wonder if that's like a because he was specifically shouting out to Litecoiners who he probably has some connections with, and his friends and with people in that community, saying like, "Hey, like yield here," and then all of a sudden that's the third biggest pool. Like maybe there's some correlation there.
100%. Yeah, that's where the growth is, to get in front of other audiences besides just our crowd here. Get in front of the Litecoiners. The the Doge is another good example of that. I think there's still a lot of like we're nowhere near the ceiling on potentially tapping into the Doge yield going viral. That could be such a thing someday. That's at what, 137K in dollars in that pool. Only 20% filled for Doge.
I kind of had assumption a while back that like if you are able to market predominantly to Bitcoiners about the service, right? Almost everybody who holds any coin probably also holds Bitcoin. Like very few people are like just hold Ether or whatever. Like most people, have a Bitcoin holdings as well. And so by targeting that particular audience and informing them they can get savers on BDC, then they'll probably also inherently learn, oh, I'm also a Litecoiner and I can do my Litecoin as well. Like it just becomes like a natural thing to occur.
That's true. Yeah, Bitcoin is like the the biggest domino. If you have Bitcoin, then that's so unattainable and so so enticing that then you're going to go down the list and be like, oh, and they have this, 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 this. But yeah, Bitcoin is kind of like the lead marketer. What about BNB? Is there native BNB yield, like single, like just straight up staking on, I don't know, on the Beacon chain, but does that exist on BSC? Like I'm curious just how the yield on BNB savers compares to other things that are out there, if anyone knows.
Not to my knowledge, but I'm not really an expert on those ecosystems, so I could totally be wrong.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not too sure.
No idea, but to me, it's not that surprising that people aren't depositing a lot of BEP2 BNB, just because not a lot of people have BEP2 BNB to actually deposit. So to me, that being like much lower on this list doesn't actually surprise me that much, because people don't even have like where are you going to buy BEP2 BNB besides from the regular liquidity pool on THORChain itself anyway. So
Right.
where
Yeah,
where are you swapping it?
I was forgetting for a second that even Binance themselves isn't letting you go from BNB BSC to BNB BEP2, right? Like Thorchain is the unofficial BSC BEP2 bridge. Well, not yet, but at least it's a
This is General
workaround.
Custer's last stand. This is the last of the BNB dexes, the last of the BEP2 BNB exchange.
I
So
think I think we should update the Thorchain bio to just say like, the last standing BEP2 exchange.
yeah, I don't know if that's going to get that many people in the door.
but it is hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I, I had a friend of mine. We were talking about adding Cardano support, and they joked around. They were like, "Well, you'd be the first DeFi platform on Cardano."
Exactly. At least that community is like probably higher self custody than like going after, let's say, like Doge, which is probably predominantly centralized exchanges. Because I know at least Cardano, a lot of people stake it, right? So at least maybe those people are a little bit closer to getting interested in DeFi.
100%.
Yeah, or I
So
mean, another
yeah,
big one someday. If it's still around and kicking, but Solana and aggregation, like you were saying, Cow, about getting non EVM aggregation. Like just personally, like a handful of projects, like not even Sol itself, but just a handful of projects that I watch and follow, just like happen to be SPL tokens, and so I'm like really often in a situation where I'm trying to go from everything I have that is connected to THORChain to to Solana, and that's still such like a step that I have to use like a bridge or even a centralized exchange or something. So
yeah. I
someday
thought
that would be
DeFi
really
Spot
cool.
was working on an aggregator that could get to Solana. I mean, at least they said they were.
Yeah, as far as I know, it would have to just use something like Wormhole, or maybe there's some
Yeah,
alternative, but
it
it would
probably uses a
still.
bridge in the middle.
Yeah, we looked at that at THORSwap for a while. For a while, it was on the roadmap, but basically, as far as I understand, the conclusion was like, given the current technology that exists, we wouldn't be able to improve the UX all that much from what's already out there. Like you can already do it on Rango, for example, right? Like it's just multiple steps, and you have to figure out you don't have gas on the recipient chain, so there's these UX problems that THORChain magically fixes for everybody, right? But when you can't use THORChain, then you get kind of like caught up in these bad UX situations. So the current thinking is to not add stuff like that on the THORSwap side, but that's back to like the one transaction thing, like what we were talking about with IBC a minute ago.
Yeah, cool, cool. So yeah, other than that, I think next thing we could talk about, I guess, is impermanent loss protection. So if you didn't already know, impermanent loss protection is being deprecated for new deposits. So not it hasn't this hasn't taken effect yet. It will after block 9.45 million and block 9,450,000, I believe, is the block number. And that is the first week of February. I think it's probably somewhere around February 6th or something like that, if I remember correctly. It's somewhere that's like, 2 or 3 weeks away at this point. So if you're making a new deposit, you'll still have 100% impermanent loss protection. And that's grandfathered forever unless you add to your current position, and that resets the ILP. And any deposit that's after that block, 9.45 million, then you don't receive impermanent loss protection. So if you want impermanent loss protection, I would recommend depositing before then. But even if you don't have impermanent loss protection, that just means you're just exposed to the tokens like you would on any other AMM. So that means you're responsible for whatever impermanent loss you accrue, but then obviously you have to stay in the pool long enough where your fees earned offsets your impermanent loss. So depending on when you enter, that could it's completely different depending on like when you enter, because when fees are high, you're making more. When fees are low, you're making less. But impermanent loss is just the change of the price ratios between the two assets that you're depositing LPs for. So uh, it was removed because it's not even necessary anymore with savers as the new way to provide liquidity without any risk of impermanent loss. So regular LPs is kind of like its own thing now, with savers being the simpler way to provide an LP without having to have rune exposure or anything like that. So if you didn't know, now you know. So anything that's already deposited is already protected and will be protected indefinitely. But that is currently the plan for what's happening with impermanent loss protection.
One kind of caveat people should be aware of, that if you have something deposited now, you have your ILP, and then post the date you still have your ILP. But if post the ILP you add some more liquidity, then you're basically opting out of ILP for both the new position you just added and the old position that was already alive in the system before. So if you do want to add more capital, but you don't want to lose your original ILP, then maybe the thing to do there is to get a second wallet and deploy it on the second wallet, and so you don't take away your ILP of the first position. Just so people are aware of that concept.
Yeah, I was just going to add the same thing. That could be the move. Is get your ILP locked in by that date, and then if you ever want to add, just use another additional wallet, and then let your protected position ride indefinitely, and your new position wouldn't be protected, but it wouldn't unprotect your original position. So yeah, that could definitely be a good strategy. And yeah, I think it's great we're getting the word about this now, because I remember we were talking about like, oh, there'd be roughly a 30-day window, but I'm not sure everyone has realized that started. So yeah, now's the time to lock that in if you're looking to have a long-term LP position or something.
And by the way, the Treasury is planning on depositing a little bit of capital into the positions, the Treasury's pools positions on each of these pools that's currently in, so that we kind of wipe out the Treasury's not going to get any kind of ILP protection effectively. And so I think a good portion, because the Treasury is a large provider of capital to most of the pools, then that means that much of the ILP will, like, I don't know what the actual number is. I'm going to guess it's half. I don't actually know the real number is, but I'm going to guess it's half. Will just be like erased overnight.
Are you talking about the impermanent loss protection that's currently owed to the Treasury LP positions?
Right. We've never really pulled out, so we've never really, like, to my knowledge, we've never pulled out of any of those pools, and so we've never really received the ILP support in a sense, and we don't want to get it either into the future. So we're going to just deposit a little bit after February 6th, so we have the date is, and kind of just kill our ILP protection.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so the little addition after that date will cancel out all the previous ILP that's owed for the Treasury. Yeah, not everyone.
Yeah, I don't think it's much though. I checked the Treasury's LP positions not that long ago, and Treasury's LP positions are doing very well, which to me means that the network is pretty healthy, in that like long-term LPs who have like a nice deposit size are like gaining significant value from being in the LPs, and like a lot of that is like there's a good number of those. Most of them are up on Rune terms and down in asset terms, so like BTC or BTCB or whatever, and then a couple of them are up on asset terms and down on Rune terms. So there's like a mix of different things. But last I checked, not that long ago though, there wasn't. There might have been one pool with impermanent loss in it with the Treasury LP position. Like they're all doing nice, which to me that just says that the pools are very healthy and gaining a good amount of yield. Obviously, it depends on when you deposited, because that's like when like the ratio of Rune to asset in which you deposited makes a huge difference there. But like the Treasury's LPs, like they looked very healthy to me. It's like there's a ton of ILP to be realized.
Yeah, that makes sense. I assumed it was a large amount of ILP just because of the large amount of position or something like this, but that was a bad assumption on my part. What you're saying actually makes a lot of sense, of the longer holding LP positions, which the Treasury, generally speaking, is like the first liquidity provider of any given pool, like oftentimes. And so it's been most exposed for the longest period of time, and therefore it's had the most income, which means it has the most income to fight against any IL that's actually currently in status. And so, yeah, I mean, that's also going to show that the people who are getting ILP after this date, that the amount of ILP risk to the protocol will naturally decrease over time, because everybody just continues to earn more and more income with every passing day or passing month. And so ILP will just naturally trend downward, I think.
Yeah, it kind of just proves the original thesis of ILP, which is if you stay in the pool long enough, you're very likely to be at a loss anyways. And yeah, that will create an interesting dynamic with people locking it in, because in reality, it's not like you're going to, most likely this ILP protection is not going to mean anything in, 365 days or 3 years or something, right? Unless prices go absolutely wildly divergent, the ILP liability is just going to essentially trend towards zero, even for the positions that lock it in permanently now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. The only one that I can see which is actually needs any kind of protection at all is the TWT pool, actually. So the Rune Trust Wallet token pool, and it's only a fairly small amount of ILP compared to the size of the pool. So yeah, all these other, so like the treasury is deposited into a lot of different pools, and every single one of them is positive on impermanent loss besides the trust wallet one. So that liability is, let me see, probably around 15 to 20,000. Actually, oh wait, no. So sorry, the impermanent loss is around 6,500 rune. So it's probably around like what, $8,000, $9,000 probably. So that is the entire impermanent loss out of 12 million in total LP positions. So looking pretty good
Not
on
that
that
much.
on that front, I think.
Yeah, I think right now the total ILP risk exposure or the liability on the network right now is about 2.6 million rune. Right, that was the highest in the last 30 days. Was I think closer to like 5 million or 4.5 million was like in the last 30 days. Just so like the trend, which is largely down right now. That's partially because of the runes performing well relative to other assets. Part of this little kind of upturn we've seen in the market right now in terms of by a per pool basis. Bitcoin is the deepest in terms of the most liability, with about 600,000, a little over 6,500,000 rune. And then the next three are BUSD, USDC, and USDT, which makes sense because they're going to experience the most IL because they're obviously a static asset, versus Bitcoin and Rune are more correlated. But the reason why you see more with Bitcoin is because the pool is much deeper, right? So when you do experience IL, there's more capital being exposed to the IL
And
in
you're
that
getting
sense.
less
And so
fees
there's a
over
relation.
time because it's so deep that people are paying less fees for their swaps.
Yep, that's valid too. Another aspect is less fees are being collected on a per swap basis because it's so deep. And so there's like multiple angles of this, how it all is calculated and how it comes out. But generally, like deep pools or stable coin pools will experience the vast majority of the IL. If you just look at that alone, like if you look at BDC, the stables, and ETH together, that looks like to be almost 2 million, I think, which is like the vast majority of the total ILP exposure, which is kind of fascinating.
So this treasury edition, is that going to be a meaningful amount of liquidity, or is it just like deposit $1 to cancel it out?
Oh yeah, no, it's just going to be like some dust. It wouldn't
Got it.
be
Yeah.
increasing our positions, whatever. It'd just be just to reset the ILP and make sure that we don't get included in that calculus.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Just kind of like a courtesy to the community, really. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yep, totally makes sense. Cool. So, yeah, spread the word about impermanent loss protection. One of the things I totally forgot about is I pinned the article that was released yesterday about 2022 and looking forward into basically, I don't want to call it the roadmap, but it's sort of the roadmap for 2023. I'd call it the look ahead of, what do we think is up ahead in 2023? Because none of us know what's ahead in 2023, just what we are planning to be ahead in 2023. So, definitely check out the new Medium article if you haven't already. Just kind of goes into some of the growth in 2022. We saw crazy growth in pretty much every metric for the network just over the course of the whole year. And the network is basically, in terms of most things, and besides rune price, obviously, the entire network is basically at all time highs for most of its metrics. So like things are looking good in terms of network health. And if you want to know what is coming up for this next year, we can talk about some of this today too. But like that details the rough plan on what to expect. So when you see people asking like what is on the roadmap, what's coming up this year, this article will be a good resource to point them to show like this is what's happening this year: lending integrations, new chains, and yeah, dexes, wallets, stuff like that.
I love the graph, by the way. The image made in that tweet is pretty neat.
The one that the community member made, the DeFi theory craft, the whole solar system one.
Yeah. That's it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, shout out DeFi theory craft. He's been making those for the community. Yeah. Do we want to go through and like just talk about quickly what's on the roadmap for 2023? I guess we could do that.
Sure.
All right, let me open up my own article. One sec.
The short is it's going to be a baller year. That's the short of it.
Hell yeah. It's time. It's time. This is the year everyone starts waking up to what we're all obsessed about here.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's going to be. I feel it feels a little bit sad to say this in some ways, but in my opinion, it's really going to be lending that wakes people up, just because lending will naturally create a pump in the coin, which that's the thing that gets headlines. That's the thing that like gets eyes, and it's not about like technological innovation. You can talk about cross-chain swaps and all these things all day, but like you know, if the coin's not pumping, they don't want to talk about it,
Totally.
right? So it's just this weird
I mean, the
thing.
reality is price is the strongest marketing in crypto, and the interesting part is that it's not just about like number go up and Lambos and stuff. Like at least in the THORChain space, because with THORChain, what's so cool is Rune itself is so inherently tied to the network itself and to the utility it's providing. Like that creates deeper liquidity, that creates more security, that creates the whole thing to work better, create more yield for savers. The whole thing is this flywheel black hole, right? So like on one hand, you can root for price go up for your own advantage, but you can also like root for price to go up because in the THORChain context, it truly does make the network more effective and stronger. So there's many benefits to it.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go through the roadmap
So can
a little
devs do
bit.
something about that? No, I'm just kidding.
Devs are doing everything they possibly can. Aradonis is barely scraping by here. He's going on 2 nights of sleep a night. We're getting these integrations in. All
Let's
right.
go. That
What?
also that conference is coming up. What, like this? Is that this coming week?
Oh yeah. We're gonna be in Miami on Wednesday giving a talk. So if anyone's in Miami on Tuesday or Wednesday, hit me, FamiliarCow, or Eridonis, who's in the audience, up, and we're gonna be there. We're gonna be giving a talk on cross chain. We're gonna be there with Sushi Swap, Jared Gray from Sushi Swap, BP Finance, and one other entity who I don't remember who it is, but Eridonis will be up there on the panel. I'll be joining him, not there, but I'll be in the audience. We have some passes too. So if you are like in Miami right now and you want to go to the conference next week for free and just see the talk, we do have a couple passes, so you could feel free to DM the THORChain account, DM Eridonis, and we have a couple passes to give out to some THORchads who are in the area. So if you'd like to come see us talk and just network a bit at the conference, then we'll see you guys next week, and we'll make sure that we'll try and make sure the video is posted online so people can watch it. We'll have a good time, but we're looking forward to just going there and just talking to people and getting some more integrations lined up. Like that's what we're doing. So we're gonna get into some more wallets this weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, Iridan has been working a lot lately. I sent over a prostitute to his house the other night just as a thank you. His 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 name was Big Frank, by the way. I hope you enjoyed him, Dennis.
So nonchalant how you said that.
I'm totally joking, by the way.
Good,
Just so
good one,
everybody
Chad.
knows,
Good one.
I'm just joking around.
Wow. Who is this guy?
Aaron Dennis gave me a thumbs up on that one. Is that a thumbs up on me or Big Frank? I'm not sure which one that was for.
Yeah, we need a human resources department.
Yeah, somebody call HR. This is unacceptable.
Is
I'm
inappropriate.
offended.
All right, let's go. Let's go to 2023. We want the people want to know what is coming. So what is coming in 2023? So first off, wallet integrations. So we know that we've been working super hard on wallet integrations. We're going to see Trust hopefully super soon with the iOS thing. Pray for the App Store approval for Trust Wallet. And then listen, we've been seeing amazing growth with Trust Wallet swaps. So we're getting there's 300 Trust Wallet swaps a day. Every single one of those swaps are double swaps, by the way, because they're always swapping from layer one asset to layer one asset. So they're swapping Bitcoin to Rune to ETH, for example. And that's only with Android. Two to 300 swaps. Less just about a month after a rollout. Over the holidays. So super strong. I think that could double at least with an iOS integration. Those iOS swaps I think could really blow the top off what Trust Wallet is doing, and that's with a very limited token offering. By the way, that's only maybe 4 or 5 swaps per. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, they're doing like 1 million in weekly volume just with Android. So just like super strong integration. I think it could be a lot higher with iOS too. So gonna be amazing.
I think I would be curious to get what percentage of their users are iOS versus Android. I thought it was much more heavy on the iOS side than it was the Android side.
I'm gonna say yes because that agrees with my argument. So
Yeah, I mean, my speculation would be that it's gonna I don't know, 5x Android. I think it's a lot more people on iOS, but I'm basing that off of purely a hunch and no data whatsoever.
If we're doing that, then we'll just say 100x.
Yeah, there's only like 50 or 60 people that use Trust Wallet Android. So the 10 million that are on iOS are going to do a lot of swaps. That's for sure.
I'm just saying, if I open my group text with my crypto friends, there's no green messages ever. So it's just not happening.
Yep, those blue bubble swaps are going to hit very different. All right, so what else are we going to see? So the more integrations. So we're going to see DEXs, wallets, and hopefully some centralized exchanges starting to use THORChain's products. So obviously, like no promises on like where we're going to be, but we're having these talks, and we're going to see like where all this can go. We're trying to talk with everybody and just get as many integrations as humanly possible coming in through NineRealm. So if you like know of something in a non-custodial wallet, you know someone running a DeFi protocol, anything that you want integrated with THORChain, like now is the time to get them thinking about a THORChain integration. Anything that supports native assets is just a prime target for a THORChain integration because it's the best way to go multi-chain and support native assets across multiple chains, support swaps, savers, and then eventually lending when that comes out later this year.
Yeah, and just to add on that, same goal on the THORswap side too, not in a competitive way, but obviously mutually beneficial. But just to add that there are multiple teams with like the number one priority being integrations this year. So just so much potential to come. And on the THORswap side, the API is really like the number one focus right now, building that out to just be like this this kit of products that's more than that. You get like the THORChain swaps, you get all the aggregation. Transaction tracker is being built out, a really effective multi-chain transaction tracker. Dashboards for the partner to track everything that's going through them. So there's just so much to come in this. And I used to think like, oh, like maybe a few integrations, whatever. But I've started to realize like, oh, this can be hundreds and hundreds of integrations over the next like year, 2 years, or something like that. I mean, it could get really wild for sure. So, if anyone has suggestions or connections to existing wallets, dApps, any sort of project that could benefit from having swaps or savers integrated, definitely get in touch with Nine Realms, THORswap. Anyone can help facilitate that.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, there's no reason for THORChain not to be in the back end of all of these wallets, especially. Like it's just the wallet case is just so obvious and so great. So uh, any native wallet, we're definitely trying to get into because it's the perfect product for any wallet. So that is aggressively what we are trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, it simply makes the wallet experience better for the wallet manufacturers' users. Like it just improves their product. It's hard to really think of an argument against it, right? It's like, oh no, we only want to let them hold certain assets and only swap certain assets. Well, they're just going to go somewhere else if they can't get that feature in the wallet you're building for them, right? So, and then there's the avenue of it being a revenue stream. Probably the number one way to monetize a wallet by far is to collect a fee on the swaps. And THORChain itself and the THORswap API like makes it super simple to customize all the fees and splitting and things like that. So
Yeah, and a lot of those integrations they're permissionless, right? Like anybody can integrate without even like talking to us as a project, right? Like like that's not the same for chain clients because chain clients require a bunch of work and dev work, and then it requires validators to get involved, have communications and debates about what this chain is and should we add it, should we not add it. So that becomes a much more longer process for obvious reasons. But when it comes to like wallets and dexes, like they can just integrate tomorrow without even having a conversation with me or anybody else or Interdaris or anybody else. Right now, it's a lot of hand holding, which is expected in the earlier days. But like as the process to integrate becomes smoother and easier, which we've already been doing with like adding certain API endpoints and something like this to make it so much easier for people to integrate, like it'll become to the point where like the work that Iridanis and other people on Nine Realms are doing becomes self-fulfilling, and you don't even need to actually handhold these individual products. They just start like mass adding THORChain to their wallets or to their dexes.
Yeah, a lot of it is just the knowledge and getting just like having some kind of support resource because like if someone's just like, hey, here's the docs, just integrate it, they're gonna be like, well, what does it even do? Like, how does it work? Like, it's so useful to just have just the resource of having a person to be like, how does this work? Like, is this really trustless? Like, oh, what is like, how do I do any of this? Just having one person to ask just makes it so much easier, which is just, I think that's what we've been seeing. Just having that one-on-one support, and it just makes the teams feel more comfortable with integrating because they know that there are like real people who are like there to help them out if they need help, or if their users are getting refunded because they didn't do an implementation correctly. It's like we have people that are always looking at that and saying like, oh, you had 5 refunds today. Here's how you could fix those in your app, and you could have no refunds tomorrow. So that one-on-one like white glove support is like what we do, and like kind of why we're being so successful with actually get like delivering the final product, and not just like talking with a bunch of people but never actually getting anywhere.
exactly, yeah, I would say don't hesitate to ask for some hand holding at this stage. Yeah, hopefully someday the devs are so inundated with requests that that's not going to be possible to handhold every single integration, and by then the resources will be so clear and uh, make the integration as seamless and easy as possible for people to just do it. But for the time being, like the support is totally there, so take advantage of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like once we get integrated with like Trust Wallet, or let's say Ledger or whatever else, and it becomes like a known thing that's almost somewhat common to use in wallets. That's like when the third wallet, whatever that wallet is, like they're not really gonna they're probably not going to vet the process as much as they would have when it was just this new thing that nobody knew about. When it's just already mass adopted through like major wallets and such, there's going to be less requirement for handholding because they're not even ask the question like, is it fully decentralized or not? They'll just assume that it is because Ledger's using it and Trust Wallet's using it and this is using it. And it just becomes a thing that people just kind of accept it is without even really needing the handholding anymore.
Yep, yep. All right. Next, we already said this, but the impermanent loss protection deprecation. So obviously that is happening. We already went into that, so not really much to go into there. Um, and then next is the synth cap raise and protocol and liquidity. So right now, synths are capped at a maximum of 30% of the total pool depth. So it's likely that that'll probably be raised to 50% with a node vote before activating protocol and liquidity. And then protocol and liquidity is what's going to help scale savers by adding dual-sided liquidity, so that way savers can scale up accordingly. So the protocol reserve will start entering Rune into liquidity positions and gaining a bigger position to maintain a safe synth utilization ratio for savers. So it basically what POL does is it just tries to deposit liquidity to maintain a specific synth utilization. So if we try to keep it at 50%, then um, the POL deposits when it's over 50% to try and bring that utilization down, and then it withdraws when it's under 50% or whatever uh, parameters we set for basically to keep those LPs safe and to make sure that the protocol own liquidity is protecting the other LPs in the network by basically diamond handing and never withdrawing, so that way everyone always has the assets that they're owed in savers, so the utilization doesn't grow to insane numbers or anything like that. So we will see that soon, I think. I don't think there's a date for this vote planned yet, and so hopefully that will happen in the next couple of weeks. There's probably some talks about that right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's like ironclad at this point of what those parameters will be. I think everybody kind of generally accepts to the large part of like what they're going to be to some general idea of it, but not specific actual numbers. What I've kind of told people in my 2 cents is we should put the synth cap at 55% or maybe 60%. Doesn't really matter actually too much either way. And then put the POL at 45% with a 5% buffer so that it starts adding the liquidity at 45 plus 5, 50%, and it starts withdrawing at 45 minus 5, which is 40%. And that way we just, the POL doesn't kind of like thrash the pools every day from just market fluctuations and pricing. So we're not constantly adding and constantly withdrawing and just like going back and forth like crazy, just bloating the chain with like that. So I think that's my feeling of it, my 2 cents, but that might not be the actual final numbers.
So what is the downside of frequent adds and withdraws? Is it just simply how much transactions there are and how much liquidity depths would be changing? Is that the downside?
Yeah, the downside is really two things, how I see it. One is by constantly just adding liquidity and withdrawing liquidity, you're basically just bloating the chain with data, right? You're just making the physical chain size, like in terms of number of gigabytes, increasing, at a faster rate just by constant every block adding 30 different pools, and every block we're mining for 30 different pools, and then adding and subtracting, adding again, and adding again, and subtracting again. It just becomes just too much. It's not a big deal. Like if you did it, it wouldn't like cause anything to fail, or it just would just cause the chain to blow faster. The other component is that you don't want to thrash the POL too much, because when you add a little bit of Rune, and where you take away a little bit of Rune, there is a slip fee that is kind of lost as part of that process, because the amount of Rune being added or the amount of Rune being withdrawn, it should be a very small amount, so the amount of slippage is quite small. But I'm sure if you were to thrash it like 100,000 times a day, that little amount could kind of like accrue to a larger number, right, or add up to a larger number.
Right. So if it was literally adding and withdrawing, like if it went to 50.01%, it's doing a transaction, then that's just like a shitload of transactions happening.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's not really healthy for the network. I mean, also that's just actually doing the processing work of actually adding and withdrawing it, which is just like taking up block space, taking up computational power of the network, which is just not needed. We don't need to be like really kind of like Gestapo about like the idea of like, oh, we're at 50.00001%. Like let's like go crazy, or we went a little bit beyond the number. It's just it's not really. It doesn't need to be that tight, just to be a general movement in the right direction.
So is this point like a point of contention right now? Does Nine Realms have a differing view on this particular point?
I think we're just trying to figure out exactly what what the exact numbers are that we want to target, and like just have a safe plan for protocol and liquidity. I don't think there's like a specific plan yet. Like I think we want to ship it, but I think we just need to figure out exactly what the parameters are before we activate it.
Right.
I think it's close. Like I mean, it has to be the next step. If we want to scale savers, right? So we just need to figure out how to land it in the right way.
Also, I think I saw, I don't know how many, but I saw some node votes switching over from 30% to 50% already. And I'm curious if that hits I don't know how far away it is from hitting the 2/3 to switch it, but would that be an automatic switch from 30 to 50? And like, is there a risk of that kicking in before PLL is turned on? Like, or is there like,
Well, it's okay if it goes up to 50 before POL is turned on. Like that doesn't like because it won't be able to go above 50% because that'll be the new hard cap.
well,
The
if prices change though, then if the prices change, then POL isn't ready to kick in.
Well, yeah, that is also part of the risk. Like, but both need to be
Yeah.
ready to go.
In my opinion, we should turn on POL with whatever these parameters are. Like, let's assume we take the numbers I just spoke earlier, and just put it on in all the pools. That's the safest thing to do. Most of the pools, we would never even use the POL because it would never get to 50%, right? Or for whatever reasons or cause. And so it's like, it just becomes something that's there for safety, but never is actually utilized because you don't need it, right? And for the ones that you do need to use it, like, Bitcoin obviously is more likely because there's a lot more activity there in terms of savers. You wouldn't want to do that. So personally, I would like to see us put on POL first and then raise the synth cap to 55% or something like this, or 60 or whatever the hell the number is going to be. It just has to be larger than 50, in my opinion. If you're 51, if you really want to. It seems a bit silly to me. But yeah, I'd say 55 or 60. And then when we get to that number and Room's price goes down relative to Bitcoin and the synth utilization goes to 60% or 70% or 80%, the POL will do its thing and push it right back down to 50.
Yep. All right, so moving on, blockchain integrations. So obviously, this is something that's like slowed down a lot over the past year, and I think there's less appetite for it now. But it's looking like the next integration will be Binance Smart Chain, which is what was voted on by the nodes back in September or October. So I believe the beginning work is being done on Binance Smart Chain. So I would maybe expect maybe another vote before that gets activated, before like that gets moved on further to make sure that it isn't like wasted effort to see if make sure the nodes actually want Binance Smart Chain. But I think given Trust Wallet's integration success, the Binance Smart Chain is just an easier sell. Just given that there's volume waiting to be had right there with Trust Wallet. Given that they could easily integrate with Binance Smart Chain, and that's where their users really are. Obviously, they're not on VEP2 assets as much. They are a little bit, but they're really on Binance Smart Chain, and that's where people are making trades, and that's where the volume is. So I think that's looking like the next integration for chains, and we'll see it at some point, I think.
Yeah, last time Pluto was on, we were talking about potentially like another symbolic vote of sorts, just given that like how you mentioned like there's not the appetite for adding chains. I think the kind of like the way I see that is like the appetite is there. It's just that the reality is that the costs and the economics don't necessarily make sense for node operators right now, right? So the concept of doing another symbolic vote is kind of like saying to the node operators, hey, we could move forward to this. Here are your costs. It's going to change it by this much. It might add this much value, but we'll see. Like, would you support adding this chain at this time given the economics? So I think it's
Yeah,
worth kind of like polling the node operators in that sense.
I believe Ursa said it was around 750, $800 a month to run the Binance Smart Chain node. So that is
Oh,
that's
that's not
basically
too
the
bad.
baseline figure of like, the cost to break, like, but also that's over all these nodes, and $800 a month on your one node, especially if you're like a small node operator, and you might not be making that much. $800 off your bottom line might be a lot. Or you could just not really care, and you could just say like, oh yeah, we'll just integrate it because that'll make Trust Wallet integration a little bit better, and we can see more
Yeah.
volume in the future. So it's like some like mental math to be had there.
Yeah, my speculation is most node operators would say hell yeah to that. I don't think they're too concerned with cutting into their margin at this stage. I mean, I see node operators as the Rune gigabulls. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. They're building the network, they're earning Rune on Rune, and they're long Rune. So I think they just want the whole thing to be as effective as possible at being cross chain infrastructure, which means having more chains. So yeah, maybe there's some node operators that makes a big difference for, but I would imagine, like, I'll honestly be really shocked if the nodes like don't want this at this time, even given the economics. Personally, that's just my two
Yeah,
cents.
I kind of agree with you.
By the way, the economics that you're referring to really only applies in some sense to the cloud provider nodes. Like people who are running bare metal, and there has been an increase in bare metal nodes since the bear market started. Like to them, adding a Binance Smart Chain would be probably no cost to them, right? But to an AWS provider, then it would cost them, $800 or so.
How does that work? Like, I'm like pretty technologically illiterate in that sense. Like, if you have a bare metal node, I mean, you already have the hardware, so it just you just add that the software you're running just becomes slightly more powerful, but you don't actually have to change anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many, like, what kind of server you have, and how many cores you have, how much memory you have, how much disk you have, and so all that depends on this. And so if we want to add Binance Smart Chain, which has, it needs 4 cores, let's just say, and it needs, I don't even know what the actual numbers are, but I'm just making up random shit. And your node has that kind of spare compute already available, then it's no cost to you. But if you find that, oh, we've already maxed out our cores on our bare metal node that we got, so what we have to do is to buy a second bare metal box, and then the two of them basically get connected to the same Kubernetes cluster, and they're just operating as the same single unit, even though they're two physically separate boxes. And so some people who bare metals, it might come to a point like, oh, we're gonna add Solana, right? Because Solana is like a super massive chain in terms of hardware requirements. And so maybe for bare metals, in that case, they have to spend, maybe $5,000, maybe $8,000, depending upon the scenario, and just have that one-time purchase of that amount, and then they can support Solana and a bunch of other things probably at the same time too.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, next up, lending. So no liquidations, no expiration, no interest, and I think that design. Chad, you're writing an ADR, I believe, to like basically float the design out. I know like the core of the design is kind of solid, and it seems like the last few things that are just kind of being figured out right now is just the like how to prevent the um an inflation event in Rune. It's like that circuit breaker that we've been talking about. So I think that's kind of where the last things are to like figure out. And the actual most of the design itself is pretty solid. I think like the core of it. And if you want to read how that works, I don't think we should get into it here, but the lending design is all in the article, pinned tweet on the top of the space. So
Yeah, I'm actually. This is what I'm probably most looking forward to in the near future of 2023. That as well as like the integration stuff. And yeah, I think this is gonna be massive. Actually, I was just talking to some of the guys over at Delphi today, and we were talking about hiring them to do like an in-depth analysis by a third party, by an objective third party, just because this concept is so it's so novel. Like nobody's ever done anything remotely close to what we're attempting here, and so there's a lot of questions about it and how it works and how it doesn't work and what the risks are, what the benefits are, and I can talk till I'm blue in the face all day about what those are, and I have a good feeling sense of what I think those are. But to have a third party, group like Delphi Digital do their own independent analysis and produce their own document for their community, just to have somebody else that's not me or Lena or anybody else within the project, I think would be really helpful for the community, especially when it comes to like some people online who are like now tweeting negative things without actually talking about what the design actually is. It might be helpful for them.
Yeah, too bad Chris left. Maybe we should get him on in the future. Like, it's probably better for like. Wait, are you going to be putting out an ADR for THORFi for the lending design?
Yeah, there'll be a vote on it at some point. I think. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Right.
I think it needs to go through. The code needs to be merged, which not all the code's been merged yet. It needs to go through staging, testing, all that stuff, and then we can go through an ADR. But there might be an ADR that shows up relatively soon in the next like week or two. That's more about the circuit breaker concept, right? Of like, what do we do in the worst case scenario where there's some sort of inflation things, and now we've hit the supply of 500 million rune. Like, what is the action item we take at that point to
Yeah. Yeah.
to help the situation? And that's the thing that's going to be some people are going to be debating about in the near future. To be honest, it's probably never even going to happen, likely. So it's kind of a moot argument, just because it's only for when things go in the wrong direction. And obviously, I'm bullish that it's not going to go the wrong direction. But it's good to have some clarity so we all understand.
Yeah, and then once we actually get everything, like, hey, this is the final, like, this is the bill that's like on the floor, basically. Then hopefully we can get some more external people like coming in and talking about it. Maybe like maybe that's when we can get the people who are very critical of the design now to come and actually voice their concerns. Because part of the problem right now is that like just trying to talk about it's like they're talking about something that is not what it is, which is not what it will be. So it's like almost just it's completely lost. It's a terrible time to talk about it because since the design is in flux, just as it is, whatever's said is just irrelevant based on what will happen. So once we get the final design, then hopefully we can do some final talks about THORFi, and we can do like a couple more spaces on them, and we'll do some Discord stages, and we'll just try and talk about it as much as possible before like that final vote and when it actually gets released. So, but I think there's no point in doing that until we have the final like design in front of us.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully we'll get that soon, and then yeah, hopefully we see lending like real soon. Like the last thing to land is just that circuit breaker, and I think there needs to be a vote on that mechanism specifically before the final like concept is approved. But yeah, THORFi lending, man, it's gonna be great.
I'm still hopeful we're going to see it in Q1 on mainnet, but I can't obviously promise that. But I'm hoping we're going to see that sooner rather than later.
Q1 seems like that it's really only like it's like it feels like it's like a month away, like Q2 at this point.
Yeah, we got like 2.5. It's like what, midway through January, about midway through January. So we got about 2.5 months. That should be enough time.
We're like still in December in our minds. We're like, yeah, maybe January. Oh shit,
January 20th, and then but next time we talk about it, it's gonna be like mid-February. That's the thing. The weeks just pass by too quick. Like it feels like, oh yeah, like there's like two things to do, but then it's like, oh man, it's mid-February by the next time we are like ready to vote. But yeah,
Yeah, but then you look back over a longer period of time, and it's shocking how much the project changes. Like, I mean, if we look back a year ago from right now, it's like, you know, just so many
yeah,
things
Doge was
weren't
just
built out at
released.
that
Like
time. Yeah, exactly.
people thinking about how Terra is going to be. Like spoiler alert, it was pretty good for like a little while.
Yeah, a year ago, I was probably tweeting every day about wanting to get Terra integrated. Memories.
Yeah, rest in peace.
And we did too.
That's true. It was very successful, and everything went really well for a
Oh
while.
man, how much TVL was in that Terra integration? It was like 100 million or something. Oh my god.
I
Yeah,
think it was
about
close to
100
that.
million,
Yeah, yeah,
which is about what the total TVL of the network today in total is about 100 million. Just to put that in perspective.
yeah. There was so much liquidity in Terra, obviously, but yeah, crazy.
All right, let's get through this. Order books. Order book design. Chad designed a crazy order book, which is built on top of the AMM. So you're actually executing orders so you're locking up synths, and then whenever an order can be hit for your whatever price you set, it's just automatically swapped and against the AMM, and then you get the final product. So you just say like, I want to swap this at this exchange rate and get this much out, and you just put the synths into a vault, like into the module or whatever, and THORChain says, "Oh wait, we can make the trade against the pool, and this guy gets his Bitcoin out at the right price. So let's do it." And that's pretty much all order books is. It's all peer to pool, and yeah, it's just based on synths and just another thing that's probably coming to THORChain this year. I think that's probably next on the list after lending. I would think that's kind of what I get the vibe as.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think it will be interesting. Like, I'm curious to see how people will use it, because I think the downside is that if you want the native asset, then there's obviously that slip, right? But I guess if you're just executing a single trade and you're already in a synth, then you could go straight to the native asset, I would assume. But you're probably going to want, like, if you're somebody that's using this a lot, you're probably going to want to already be in synths so that you're not constantly going from native to synth, synth to synth, synth to
Right.
native, right? Because then you're going to be like multiplying your slip every single step of the way.
Yeah, if you're using this to do some sort of like almost like a hyper trading, then you're right. Like start with synths and just an N instance, and then whenever you're ready to just leave, just sell your synths into the layer one. If you're just doing
Exactly.
this to
Oh,
to pick up like a long term trade, like I'm waiting for Bitcoin to hit 16K before I buy another BDC or whatever the hell it is you're trying to do, then on that long term sense, you could probably just set the thing, just leave it, and maybe it'll get executed in the next 3 months or something like this. Who knows, right?
that's true. Yeah, if you're putting like stink bids on something for like some black swan event, you might not care about like the extra fee if you're putting in like a 10K Bitcoin order or something like that.
Right.
But for the average, I would imagine what most people would use this for are more like traders, like people that are actively trading. I mean, that's like, obviously this is like a trading feature, right? Like people that want to be able to enter and exit probably relatively frequently, or for the
Yep.
most part. So yeah,
Yep. It's a different DEX than we've normally seen in the industry, and so it's going to have a different set of attributes that are going to be positive in one sense and honestly negative in another. Like Cumberland may not want to use this because they don't want to pay the constant fees back and forth unless they don't mind acquiring a bunch of synthetics and kind of holding that. But it has its pros and has its cons, and so it's going to address to a different audience potentially. But it'd be interesting just to have the feature just to see how it gets used.
Another interesting potential use case of order books that I didn't initially consider is we've been looking, analyzing kind of the refunds that come through the network, and we've realized that, especially since the rollout of Trust, most of the refunds that happen come from Bitcoin because we have the inbound confirmation counting where we basically need to wait, at least for smaller transactions, at least one Bitcoin block and potentially more Bitcoin blocks based on the size of the transaction. And Bitcoin blocks can be are very variable in terms of how long. I mean, they can go from, we were looking at it, it's like some blocks are like 45 seconds and some are like 45 minutes. And so in that time of posting the transaction and when the swap actually gets executed could be like up to an hour, in which case the gas could spike, outbound fee could increase, and then your limit that you provide won't be met. And that's what's happening a lot with Bitcoin, inbound Bitcoin swaps. And so one interesting use case would be that wallets could, instead of, if someone's going from Bitcoin, instead of just doing a swap, you would actually do an order book. You would put a limit order essentially, and that would allow that order to kind of hang out instead of refunding and eating outbound fee on the way out, especially for smaller transactions. That order would just hang out as liquidity until the outbound fee goes back down and can be met, which is kind of a cool use
That
case.
is interesting. So could you actually set it so a transaction will fall back into an order book order if it can't be executed at the current price? It seems
I
like,
think that's
yeah.
just I think that's just how it works. If you submit an order, I mean, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like it would essentially just kind of check immediately if that limit order comes through, if it can be fulfilled. If it can, it would just be submitted into that order book and checked every block, I believe it is, or I forget exactly how often they're checked.
So you actually couldn't have a failed swap on THORChain after order books are released? Is that like what you're saying? It would just be an order instead?
Yeah, I think if you submit an order, it would just hang out forever,
Really?
essentially, if it's never met. Yeah, which is not bad for the network, because that's just
That's awesome.
liquidity, just chilling.
Does that change the overall slip though? Like if I'm like saying I want to go from BTC to ETH at a certain price though, and instead of just going BTC Rune ETH, it has to go BTC Synth to ETH. Is that an extra step of slip?
No, I don't think so, because like the synthetic Bitcoin is effectively, in terms of the slip calculation, it's the same as native Bitcoin. It's the same like depth. So you submit native Bitcoin, your liquidity is held as synthetic Bitcoin, but the calculation is still Bitcoin to Rune to
Yeah,
ETH.
well, I think he's saying like,
and
so since there's an extra slip that's in there, you're paying more for the fee if you're in an order book order rather than if you're just in an AMM
when you're
order.
minting.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
When you
I don't
mint
know.
the synth, yeah.
Yeah, Chad, how does that work? I'm not actually sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, so technically what happens in an order book scenario, if you're going from layer 1 to layer 1, you are starting at layer 1 BTC, you're swapping into Rune, which then creates the synthetic, right? So there's a double swap there. You're waiting for your order to be actually executed, and then once it's actually able to execute, it swaps the synthetic to Rune and the Rune to the layer 1. And so in total, you're doing 4 swaps in total when you're entering and then when you're exiting. If your order book thing can be executed now and it doesn't need to sit around and wait for another block, then it just executes layer 1 to layer 1. You just skip the whole synth thing entirely. It'll just like trade it now. I think that's true, at least. Maybe that's not. I have to think about it more. But yeah, I think I'm thinking about it more. But so yeah, there is additional fee that you're paying, right? I mean, it's the same. It's a bit similar to how if you're trading on a SEX, where you're taking you're never actually trading layer 1 to layer 1 on a SEX. You're inserting your layer 1 into the network, the centralized exchange. Then they're giving you an IOU, which is effectively like a synth in some ways, sort of. And then you're trading and doing all the things you want, and you're paying a single or double swap to do those trades, depending on which trade you're trying to do within THORChain. But within the SEX, you're just doing a single trade back and forth, just trading IOUs back and forth, all these places. And then eventually you want to exit and you go back to your layer 1 and you make a withdrawal, blah, blah, blah. And there's fees associated with that as well. The only difference is I think, is that in THORSwap, when you're depositing your layer 1 Bitcoin to acquire synthetic, there's a fee associated with that. Whereas in centralized exchanges, that's not the case.
Yeah. So can you, does this work if you have synthetic Bitcoin? Can you deposit that directly as an order, a limit
Right.
order, or
You can. So you
okay,
might just acquire a bunch of synthetic Bitcoin through swapping, or maybe through even a sex could accomplish that task. And then once you acquire it, you can do like a bunch of like trade, like hyper trading, right? And not
right,
have to worry about the additional fees, right? You just need to, if you're going to do one trade and leave, then you might as well just start with layer one and go to layer one and not worry about it. If you're going to do like a bunch of trading and you're going to be like buying and selling and because you're a day trader, then it makes more financial sense just to take a synthetic position and then like, oh, buy some synthetic Bitcoin, then acquire some synthetic Ethereum, then sell that and get some synthetic, USDC or whatever it is, and then just trade around within the synthetics. And then once you're all done and ready, and you're like, all right, I'm done. I want to sell. I want to go back to fiat or something like this. Then you can sell your synth to a layer one, and then sell the layer one on a centralized exchange.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, also the like if your order can't be executed now and it's needs to go into a synthetic, like that slippage is actually not very problematic, especially for like trust size. Like trust, like the average swap size is like $600 or something, pretty small, so the slippage is like minuscule, especially compared to like the outbound fee. And so like if for those retail swaps they kind of use this, like the slippage would be, even if they're paying double slippage, wouldn't really be that problematic. It would probably only be pretty problematic if you're swapping like 10 Bitcoin, which would be kind of crazy.
I think the scenario that I
Yeah,
think order books would be really cool in is an exchange like something like GMX, where it's just a exchange entirely built on synths, or like a trading interface that just uses synths. Like right now, everything that uses THORChain is all layer one assets, but I am really curious to see what a trading interface built upon synths looks like, in using the regular swaps as kind of like the onboarding into the exchange, where it's like you can use your layer ones to deposit on, and then you have your IOU tokens that you could trade back and forth really quickly with basically no fees, and make your spot trades and do your order books, and then hopefully with perps people could do leverage and things like that. Like to me, that's kind of the final evolution of where this goes. You have like the native trading, like wing, which is kind of like the on and off boarding to THORChain, and then you have like the internal trading, which is synths, order book. Even lending is just lending out like derived assets, right? So it's like there's like the onboarding with native assets, and there's all the internal trading that you can do, and no one's really capitalizing on that right now, building a synths like trading platform, like an interface for people to trade. And maybe that's just because the lack of leverage on THORChain, and like the things that like tools that traders would want to use. But um, like that sounds like an easy way to have an interface that has like a unique value proposition, and um, you know build a unique product for people that people would want to use.
100%. Yeah, with those features in, it seems very plausible to build a sex-like experience, on chain with synthetics. One potential downside or like hurdle to solve is how that plays in with DEX aggregation, though, because obviously there's been such a push towards gas assets on THORChain and not every asset, which means you only have the synthetics for the main assets, right? For this sort of platform. So then the question is like, can you still daisy chain that with DEX aggregation and get all these other assets integrated? And will that be possible to do order books through aggregation? I know Oleg at THORSwap has been looking into this, and to be determined if it's fully possible in all directions and stuff like that. But that would be especially cool. I mean, if you're really having the sex like experience, it's gotta have it all.
yeah, it's a fair point to make. Yeah, we'll see how it kind of like irons out. But the problem with that is that because we have limited security in the network, because we want to maintain economic security, so we can't just unboundedly accept as many coins and many networks as possible. We have to limit things, and so we can't just have really super deep pools for every coin in crypto, because we wouldn't have enough security to support such a thing. Which is why we tend try to focus on the primary assets, the blue chips.
And lastly, we have perpetuals. So I think that there's a very, very early design document on the GitLab, and I don't think really much more has been done there. I know Chad isn't even uh, a huge fan of like what's currently proposed, or maybe it's just so early in this process. But I think there is interest in a design in a protocol on THORChain. So it's just very, very early in the design there, but I just wanted to call out that that was one of the things on the 2023 look ahead doc as like maybe something that we'd see in 2023. So I would look out for the design evolutions of that, and maybe that's like something that could be seen like maybe towards the back half of this year, with the other things being the higher priority items that are like closer to ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, purpose is an interesting concept. And the main reason why I think we're interested in it is just because they just create a lot more trade volume. And obviously we like trade volume. So that's the reason why we're kind of interested in poking at the idea. Every design that we've seen, at least I've seen thus far, I'm not a particularly huge fan of. I just don't think it's safe. For example, like because when perps are dealing with leverage, the ability to manipulate the price and do a price manipulation becomes more viable because the value you're getting out is leveraged, right? And so it can kind of counteract the cost that it takes to price manipulate, the Bitcoin pool or whatever it is. And so I have some concerns around that to make sure it's done. It can be done in a safe way. A lot of other dexes just tend to use like, I think GMX, for example, uses like Chainlink as a price oracle, as an external price oracle, which, I guess it works, but also you're relying on a centralized entity to give you correct price information, which we've also seen Chainlink not give correct price information, and people got completely wrecked, right? So we still need to figure out a way to do that in a way that it feels safe to me, but I don't think we've done that quite yet.
Yeah, super early on that front. Like I don't think that's something I think that whatever is in the current design doc is probably just like it is the earliest like version of whatever perp thing could eventually come out, if that's something that the nodes decide that they want. So yeah, I think there's probably going to be many more designs that come after this. I would think, at least, and that's pretty much the end of like the 2023 look ahead. It's just a better UX for developers, which is something that Nine Realms has been working on, just improving the developer documentation and keeping good communications with everyone that we're trying to integrate with. So that's pretty much everything that is like currently planned. That doesn't mean that it's everything that's going to happen in 2023, but that's pretty much everything that is like being looked into / worked on right now, as far as I know. And that's just core protocol side. So that's not obviously including all the interfaces and awesome people that are building on THORChain in their own way. So yeah, any other thoughts or anything like that? Anyone have questions that wants to come up and ask something about anything that we talked about?
Yeah, I think that was it on the list, but anyone feel free to hit the request button.
Yeah, we'll do 1 or 2 questions. I don't think we need to keep this too long today. But yeah, so many awesome things to look forward to in 2023.
Little teaser, I think there's going to be 2 separate THORswap announcements today. Medium size announcements.
In addition to 1-inch avalanche on the DEX aggregator, or is that separate?
Well, that's one of them. Right. So you leaked that one. That's
leaked.
All right.
It was announced.
We already. Oh, they already. I haven't even seen the tweet. I guess it was while I was on here. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. Yeah. So 1-inch aggregation for Avalanche now live.
Cool. So what can you? Is that like swap in or like certain routes, or I'm not sure which. Like what can you trade on 1-inch Avalanche that has good prices?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what assets work out to be the best rates, but essentially, it's added in with Trader Joe and Pangolin, so it's always scouting to see which is going to give you the best rate for the swap you're quoting. So I'm sure there are some cases where 1inch will give you a better rate than anything that was currently already integrated. So just helps, progress the THORswap experience, and also for any API integrators, just helps users get better and better swaps with every additional route that's added.
Brought up Juggernaut. Good morning. What's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Not too loud. Because I changed your microphone. I don't know.
You're good. You're good. We can hear you.
Okay. Just one question, because a lot of people ask about it. On the roadmap now, because I don't know, 3 months ago it was that, perhaps it has changed now, about integration of new blockchain. I stayed to the last project 3 months ago. That was for 9 rings smart chain, okay, BNB smart chain, which is logical because it will bring same security problems that than Ethereum, so it's logical. And Haven for the core team, for the core dev. Is it still the case or not? What answer to people say when Haven? Because Dash is already quasi integrated to Maya, okay? So, Heaven, what can I answer to even people to for their XHV?
Yeah, I think the question is when is Haven being being integrated? If I'm understanding correctly. I don't know the latest, to be honest with you. I haven't spoken to the dev working on this stuff in a while, but the original Haven code, the chain client code, was not up to a code quality that one of our Bifrost devs has. And so there was just kind of this concern about some aspects of like how it was implemented or some aspects of the code. And so there was a push a while back, I think it was like a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago, just to start building a new chain client from scratch by one of our Bifrost devs, by Heimdall specifically, to build a Monero thing and integrate with Monero primarily. So I don't know if Haven's still going to happen or not at this point, to be honest. To be honest, it's looking a little bit more on the bear side at this particular moment. But getting Monero integrated is obviously the most important one for us to do from a privacy perspective, because that's just the most useful privacy system in the entire crypto space. Better than Tornado Cash and better than Haven and better than many of them.
Yes, but what I understood is to bring Monero to THORChain, it's necessary to integrate first Haven.
No, it's not necessary. It was a little bit necessary before because there was the Haven team that was building the chain client, and it felt like a kind of a big dick move to like take their code and not integrate their chain. It just felt like a dick move. And so, and it does make some sense to add it on a small scale first, like a smaller chain first, just in case if there's any issues, wouldn't be as big of an issue. Would be a lot of capital at risk. But since we're building our own chain from scratch at this point, it seems like then there's not really a desire or a need to add Haven, especially at this time when, to my knowledge, the stable coin is still depegged, which is a primary use case for the asset. And their market cap is like, I don't know, I want to say it was like 6 million or 10 million not too long ago, or whatever it is. Like, it's very economically insecure. And so it's not really sure if it's worth it.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. And thank you all for your works. Awesome.
Thanks for coming on, man. Brought up Scott too. Hey.
Hey, what's up, guys? All right. I'm skiing right now, so sorry if you can't hear me very well. But I got a question. My dad, he's a boomer, doesn't believe in THORChain, skeptical of everything crypto, and he asked me how Chad actually gets paid, and that was something that I was kind of curious about because obviously you're not doing this for free. But how do like the devs get paid for working on THORChain? And that's my question.
Yeah, good question. To be honest, I actually haven't been paid in a very long period of time, which is actually true. Generally, what happens for most devs is, so we have a treasury, right, which is a fund of capital that we've started off created with, I think it was 1.5 million in that. We got a few rounds from investors. This is back in like mid 2019. And then since then, a bunch more investors came on, and the treasury value just increased because of markets and stuff. And so devs will generally get paid, various amounts depending upon their contribution. They usually get paid in a stable coin, might be like a USDC or a BUSD, something like this. We don't pay high salaries at all. I think the highest possible salary as a dev on THORChain is a 10K a month, which is, relative to what, like if I wanted to, I live in New York City, for example, and if I wanted to get like a dev job in New York City, I could make a lot more than that if I wanted to. And in addition to that, each dev has a contract around, some locked rune tokens that get released when certain milestones are hit, like mainnet, for example, or other kind of milestones. And so the amount of rune that those devs get is obviously part of the compensation package. And so if the product does well and the rune token goes up in good value, then that 10K a month that you're earning, or 5K a month depending on the dev, earns, that 10K is basically nothing compared to the rune that are actually earning, depending on what their compensation is. So that's how the payments work. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks for answering, and super excited. I'm working a bum job, and every dollar I get, I buy more rune. But yeah, thanks for answering. I gotta go. We'll see you. Thank you.
He's literally on the steps as we speak.
He literally just jumped off the fucking, what the hell they call that thing? The seat you jump off, and then you just go down the whole the hill.
Dude, I really did just get off the lift, but I gotta pull my phone up. All right, we'll see you.
Dude, 10 out of 10 energy, Scott. That was amazing.
That's hilarious. He's skiing and learning about rune. Multitasking.
It's like, hey, I'm jumping out of a plane right now, but just a quick question for you.
Love it.
Pluto's like, I'm visiting, Big Frank right now, but I have a question real quick.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit onto that and say, like, all the other, like, that's how the core team gets paid, and every like Nine Realms is like a an organization like in the United States, like it's its own company, so we get like a regular like paycheck like normal. So it's every team has like their own thing that they do. That's just how the core team does it, and Nine Realms does its own thing. And I'm sure like THORSwap has their own way of paying their own employees, and everybody else does too.
Yeah, on that, another thing that might be helpful to explain to him is just like why projects have tokens in the first place. And in a lot of cases, it's to distribute ownership of the entire thing, right? So like even you as a token holder, like you are incentivized to help it succeed, right? Like that's kind of a big factor. So people just that's kind of how it works in crypto, is you a lot of times just start working and helping out on something that you're believe in and have a stake in, right? Because you're already holding incentive to do that thing. So that could potentially help them understand a bit more, just like understanding why tokens exist.
Yeah, true. All right, let's let this one last person up, and then I guess we can wrap it.
No, don't wrap your tokens.
No wrapping.
Equinox.
Yeah, hi there. I'm wondering if THORChain can start to feed the TradingView with the prices. I guess TradingView is the leading financial data provider in the retail space. So the thought is that it's free marketing.
I'm not sure if I understood what you just said there. You say it again?
Yeah, TradingView, I guess it's the leading financial data provider for the retail space. And a handful of other dexes are feeding their pool prices for TradingView. So you can actually go to see all the sushi swap prices, all the Uniswap prices, and so on, right? So if THORChain can start to feed TradingView with prices.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I don't know what it takes to actually do such a thing.
I mean, since a handful of other dexes are already doing it, I guess it should go. And it's free marketing, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. I'll poke the Nine Realms team. I mean, Eric Dennis is here already, so he's listening, and Pluto's here as well. But that's another thing to put on the list of integrations.
Yeah, and then the same procedure, but for the institutional space, is to do the same thing for Bloomberg. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bloomberg platform.
Of course, yes, of course.
Yeah, so start to feed them with prices as well. So the THORChain brand name, everything will be visible for the big bucks.
Yeah, sure. I'll put it on as a task item for the Nine Realms team to take on at some point in time to investigate those integrations.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into it. Thanks.
I see. Ryan was just connecting. Maybe he has something to add on this.
Yeah, Equinox. I was just curious about TradingView. Currently, when you look at sushi prices, that all that does is displays the sushi prices. Are you able to execute through TradingView, or is it just a way to visualize the candles?
Not currently. You cannot execute. You cannot connect your ledger on TradingView and start trading. You cannot do that.
Yeah,
got it. Okay. Yeah, that seems like something we could absolutely support. I'll look into it a little bit.
But the most interesting stuff is to provide Bloomberg, because at some point, if you can connect directly with your ledger on Bloomberg, then you immediately access to the big bucks.
I mean, is that even announced as like a Bloomberg feature, or is that Hopium?
Hopium.
Okay, yeah, I like that vision. But yeah, I think we can get price data in front of people, faster, and then that could get leveraged into Bloomberg in the future.
Cool.
To be fair, though, I think especially now in the bear market, Rune is more positioned towards retail users, just because the liquidity is relatively small. But as the liquidity grows and becomes larger, and the fees become cheaper, then larger scale swappers can come in.
If only someone was working on onboarding institutional liquidity and market makers to THORChain.
Yeah, and then maybe they can be the leading charts on TradingView someday if the liquidity is that deep too. Because yeah, to your point, like whenever I'm checking the Rune price on TradingView, it's like the Binance price or something, or I have this like wacky chart to try to get the Thor versus Rune ratio because I like to watch that, and it's just like a mess of different charts pulling from like centralized exchanges and sushi, and it's just like not very elegant.
I mean, I suspect if you're using a Bloomberg terminal, then you don't really care about decentralization, and you'll probably just trade through Coinbase or Binance or stuff like this. You probably you may not see the value of using something like a THORChain, possibly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, potentially. I guess they're just watching stats and numbers move around. But this makes me think TradingView should just have a swap widget. Why does that not exist? Somebody should get on that.
Let's go to the last question. Muna, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm good. Hey, guys. Good job all around. I just, just a crazy thought while you guys were talking about institutional clients. The slip-based fee model, how would that apply to institutional clients, regarding taxation and stuff like that? Does anyone have any ideas?
I don't see how that would make any difference regarding tax. I don't think that there would be any difference in taxation. That's just the fee that you're paying to the network to use it. So I don't think that makes any difference in terms of how much you're being taxed. I think it does make a difference in like the usability and like how much value you can extract from any given transaction, because you're likely paying more in fees than you are on another service depending on the swap size. But I don't think the slip fee itself changes any kind of like tax obligation or anything like that. It just makes it so you normally get out less than, you know, some kind of like low fixed fee or something depending on the trade size.
Cow, did you put up this this tweet pin?
Oh yes, Shapeshift just posted that. 0xDeFi Cafe just posted that. Little alpha leak there. It looks like Shapeshift will be releasing their Savers Vault implementation very, very soon, from what I hear. So we're also getting ready on like the marketing front on that, and yeah, I hope people are like looking forward to THORChain and Shapeshift together in 2021. I have a feeling that you know, they'll become closer together, and the story will be like pushed out there further. We're going to be together at ETH Denver in March, so anyone's planning on going to a conference this year, go to ETH Denver. We'll be there with Shapeshift, and the Shapeshift and THORChain are just so perfect together, because the whole story behind Shapeshift is literally like the hero story for THORChain, and then all of a sudden they just rise together. Then they're this DAO that runs the front end, and then it's this decentralized liquidity backend that's created that can basically power everything that the DAO does without custody. So it's pretty incredible, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Shapeshift can do with THORChain this year. I hope they get a little tighter with their THORChain integration.
By the way, there's another pinned tweet. So the second one that I pinned earlier. It's a tweet thread from the THORChain account that kind of went over a high level of the THORFi lending thing, considering just some of the discussion from yesterday. It's a good tweet thread, well written, well done. Give it a read and spread the word.
Yes, sir.
Looks good. I haven't even read that yet.
All right,
Nice.
guys, that's it for today,
Yeah,
I think. Sorry. As Chad was saying something. My bad.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, because there was TBR, Tyler, and OX Fubar were like kind of throwing some shade around the lending concept without knowing the design, and so somebody from our THORChain community posted this tweet thread to kind of explain the high level, just to give them something to read without spending an hour and a half.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. I feel like that one sounds more like disappointed.
Yeah, the
than we
emojis
want
are
it to
not
sound.
representative at all of what the
I
sounds
know.
are. It's pretty bad. Sorry.
Yeah, I did the same thing with that one once. I was like, I thought it was going to be like an excited woo sound. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like all disappointing. It's like bummer sounding.
Oh. No, it's not the same sound at all. You need to fix the emojis. All right. That's it for this week, I think. Maybe next week, maybe the next week, we're going to have Shapeshift on, and we'll talk more about Shapeshift and THORChain, and how Shapeshift is going to be utilizing THORChain with Savers Vaults, and hopefully everything else that THORChain offers. So, yeah.
Yeah, and come meet us in Miami. We have 9 passes. I mean, these passes are going to go unused. So literally free tickets to this conference. Yes. Hit me up if you want them.
Yeah, anyone in Miami, DM Aradonis right now, especially be free on Wednesday.
Do it now. Do it now. Alrighty.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
Later.
let's go. Bye-bye.
All right.